Perhaps the biggest appeal to antinatalists about the movie I Wish You Were Never Born is that it's about them. Antinatalists all over can get excited that there's a well-made, well-promoted and so far well-received movie about them at last. The makers do deserve credit for putting it together, and I hope it does well for them. That said, those of us waiting for a movie that adequately explains antinatalism are going to have to keep waiting, because in truth, a movie that is advertised about the philosophy of antinatalism does not have the philosophy of antinatalism. No mention of any of the leading thinkers of pessimism/antinatalism over the years. No adequate description of the philosophy and the various logical ways one can arrive at the antinatalist conclusion. The filmmaker, Jack Boswell, was good enough to respond to my comment about this, saying that he decided to focus more on the individuals involved and what made them who they are instead of the philosophy itself, mainly because he saw that, on a street outreach level, many people were simply uninterested or unable to understand what was being explained to them. That's his call, and as the filmmaker he's entitled to make it. But for mine it's a disappointment. I very much suspect that street-level outreach is not the right place for serious philosophical discussion. A pity, because it should be. But if Jack was spending time observing people like Danny Shine in action, he can hardly be blamed for not wanting to get into the weeds of it in a movie. But I think there's nothing wrong with having serious and intelligent information presented to people in a documentary. I think that's the very place for it. In a way, it's a tad condescending to expect an audience to not appreciate such information. Maybe the people being harangued on the street just didn't want to know about stuff like the asymmetry or negative utilitarianism, because who needs stuff like that when you're going shopping or are picking the kids up from school or whatever it is you have to do. Anyway, what we got was the human interest bit. What makes these people tick? And it's unsurprising that with a depressing philosophy like antinatalism, there'd be questions about depression. As said, Jack was more interested in getting into the personalities of the people he was talking to. From an audience perspective, that's fair enough, as people do seem to like prying into other people's personal stuff, and there are always people happy enough to put their personal stuff out there for other people to pry into. And sometimes it can be entertaining and even informative. One big problem, though, was while there was precious little antinatalism in it, there was a fair bit of pro-mortalism in this movie. And the people in the movie didn't seem to have a problem talking about that. Amanda talking about friends who have suicided, for example, and saying stuff like suicide is kind of a big piece of what this thing is, and it's the toughest part of being in this community, and I'm so happy that my friends are free. How could the casual viewer of something like that not just conclude that antinatalism is about people killing themselves? A discussion of the implication of antinatalism on pro-mortalism could have been had in an intelligent manner, but instead, because of the human interest angle, we get this extremely morbid view of antinatalism as a community where it's just par for the course that people kill themselves. Did no one bother to step back from that and realise how wrong that is? If anything, it would be a warning to people not to be involved with antinatalism, and frankly it would be a warning that people would be right to heed. Also, Matt, Life Sucks, proudly showing off the page of his colouring book with Gary in it. So yeah, once again, a movie about philosophy with no philosophers in it. It was pointed out to me that that particular page has a picture of a big mushroom cloud in the background. Now, we all know that Mosherism is about killing the world, but I think it would have been good if Jack had pursued that angle more, because we're getting the impression that antinatalism is not only about pro-mortalism, but omnicide. For mine, though, it was Danny Shine who was the most outright egregious, because towards the end of the movie, the question is put to him, what if one of your kids had a kid? And his response...
I mean, I don't know how I'll feel. It's difficult to know. But, you know, when I look at it now, I'd be devastated by it, really devastated, I'd be devastated what she'd done to the child, and I'd be devastated about what it'd do to her, because, you know, I really do firmly think that makes perfect sense to me that if you want to take care of a child, we need to take care of our own little children that are inside ourselves that haven't been taken care of properly and have been traumatized by just by life itself, or by all sorts of horrible things that happen to people in life. So, you know, I don't think any of my children are in a position to take care of other children. They need to take care of themselves and their own journey. So if she did that, yeah, I would be really, really upset. I don't know what I would do, but my initial feeling would be I don't really want to have anything to do with it. I don't have anything to do with it.
The impression is given of a man more committed to pursuing his own ideological campaign than bringing up the family he's created. To be fair, I think these people were a bit unprepared for this line of questioning. For example, the bit about Amanda talking about absent friends was shot in a preparatory manner, as Jack explained in the movie, and none of us are privy to any private conversation that Shine would have with his kids. For all I know, he would be a good grandfather to his grandchild. This is the problem with this kind of too intimate stuff. It leaves impressions of people that might not be honest. Then again, at least Amanda and Danny have form in putting out their private stuff online. Amanda's YouTube channel is no longer up, but there was loads of confessional material on it, and Danny's YouTube channel also has as much similar material. And at any time, they and any of the others could have gone, sorry, too deep, don't want to talk about that, if they wanted to. You can see why David Benatar prefers to keep his private lives private and just discuss the philosophy and its implications. Smarter move. Anyway, this movie will be good for those who are already converted to antinatalism as an ideology, interesting for people outside the scene, and I hope a warning for such people that such a scene is not one to be fully involved with. Kirk Waller's turn in the movie at least would have made that clear. But for anyone wanting to know what antinatalism actually is, they'll just have to stick with the literature.